The reports are gaining more and more steam that Romelu Lukaku is all but confirmed to Chelsea, making a return to Stamford Bridge with plenty of unfinished business to take care of for the Blues. Hey, I'm Adrian and welcome to Rabona TV. Today, as you know, will be all about Inter, apparently selling Lukaku to Chelsea for somewhere in the region of, 120 to 130 million euros. Huge transfer. Now, if you want to learn more about this situation, the dire finances at Inter, then I have a video for you that covers all of that, as well as a video on how Lukaku has transformed as a player under Conte in Italy, and what he could bring to Chelsea. So we won't devote a whole section of what would he bring to Chelsea in this video, given that I've done an entire video on how he has changed as a player already. Alright, let's go, starting with why fans will be infuriated with this transfer if it goes through, which it seems like it will. Beppe Marotta and co promised that Hakimi was the only one of the important squad players that would need to be sold in order to raise some funds for the loan that they took out from Oak Tree Capital. They told the supporters, who fear that they would lose more important players because of the financial issues at Inter, that Hakimi to PSG would likely be the only one, as the 60 million euros would be a massive boon to their finances, and that he would be the sacrifice that they would have to reluctantly make. Now, there are other reports that say that they still need to reduce their wage by about 15 to 20%. In steps Lukaku. Now, the big fear prior to the sale of Hakimi was that someone like Lukaku would get cashed in upon. No doubt, the most high-value player in their team, and for good reason. Lukaku has been the heart and soul of this Inter turnaround. His own turnaround in his career has sort of coincided with that of Inter's. After the disappointment of his time in England, he truly found himself in Inter, and not only found his scoring touch on the pitch, but became a much more complete player. In fact, I think he sort of discovered how he is best deployed on the pitch, playing off of another striker as opposed to getting sandwiched between two wingers. Playing off of Lautaro Martinez, and with Conte improving his overall game, including his hold-up play and how he deals with the ball with his back to the goal, Lukaku became the most complete striker in Serie A last season, which I did a video on with Uncle Sharma, in case you want to know more about how he elevated his game to new levels, as I mentioned in the intro already. Come on, I'm repeating myself. But it's also the mentality that he brought, as he became the on-pitch lieutenant to Conte to ensure that standards were always high, and that thirst for victory was ever present within the squad. His contributions and importance to this Inter side go far beyond the goals and assists, as he's, in some respects, the captain of this side, or the leader. He's taken to the city as well. His iconic celebrations during the Milan derby, and how he's embraced the city, and how the Inter fans have embraced him as well. He's absolutely a fan favorite for all of these aspects combined, and losing Lukaku and Conte in the same summer would be agonizing. It's basically complete self-sabotage at this point. As highlighted in a recent video by my guy, Uncle Sharma, I've linked to it below, he's pointed out how Inter Ultras are not afraid to show up at the club headquarters and demand a dialogue. In our video together on what's going on at Inter financially from earlier in the summer when Conte quit, we talked about how Inter Ultras got into the club and spoke with Beppe Marotta about what the plan is, what kind of sales can be expected, etc. And he basically gave assurances that they would have to make a sacrifice or two, but they won't have to sell all of their prized assets. The sale of Lukaku would go against this in a sense, and the Curva Nord, the Inter Milan Ultras, displayed a sign that read, "Board, pay attention, promises should be kept." I mean, if that's not an ominous banner once you take into consideration their history of showing up to the Inter headquarters, I don't know what is. It's clear that they feel like Suning are betraying the fans after all that they have said in the past regarding how many players Inter would need to sell. Obviously, we don't know 100% where Lukaku stands on this, but we can only go off of what he said in the past. He has reiterated how he has been and still is happy to stay in Milan and fight for another Scudetto with Inter. Now, of course, when a transfer offer gets to this sort of gargantuan range, 100 million plus, a club has to reconsider, especially a club like Inter who still owe Manchester United a lot of money for Lukaku and are in need of funds wherever they can find them. As for Lukaku, there are rumblings that he would be open to this deal given who is behind it. He apparently said no to Manchester City back in June, but Chelsea carry a different weight when it comes to his heart. This is the club he grew up supporting, who he got a dream move to at a young age. But things never played out how he would have liked. He only made 15 appearances for them. I'm sure he has a very unsettled feeling when he looks back at his time at Chelsea. Again, this is all just assumptions as we don't have a crystal ball, but there are reports that would sort of support this theory. Reports such as, that Lukaku had never pushed for a move, but with Chelsea, he wouldn't say no to a return to Stamford Bridge so long as Inter got a good price for him in return, which as of now seems to be the case. There are other reports Chelsea and Real Madrid are the only two clubs that Lukaku would have left Inter for, but again, that's a journalist just, maybe they're an insider, maybe they're just taking a random stab at things and crafting a story. Who knows? What the real story seems to be is that, as mentioned, Lukaku hasn't said no to Chelsea, and if Inter can get a good price, he'll go back to Stamford Bridge. Now you have other journalists such as Gianluigi Longari saying that Inter are trying to put the burden of this transfer deal on Lukaku himself, asking him and his camp to publicly say that he wants the move to Chelsea because he wants to go to Chelsea, not because Inter wanted to cash in on him. When Inter lost Antonio Conte and replaced him with Inzaghi, you had some people joking around saying that they got Conte light, as Inzaghi also played a 3-5-2, is fiery, etc. And now with Lukaku's seemingly impending sale, the rumor mill is saying that Inter will go for someone who is lazily referred to as Lukaku light, in Duvan Zapata of Atalanta. Zapata has been a great Serie A striker over the years, but to sell Lukaku and then spend a further 40 million euros, that's the rumored price, on a 30-year-old who is, that's a bit of a tough pill to swallow. From Conte to Inzaghi, losing Hakimi, and now potentially losing your biggest player and replacing him with Zapata. That's tough. This is an exceptional summer for Inter, really. As Sempre Inter founder Nima Tavali Ruzzari tweeted, "I've never seen a club implode at this level the way Suning's Inter is imploding. It's almost impressive." And you can't say he's wrong, can you? Days after winning their first Scudetto in 10 years, they lose the manager that made it possible. And now they're losing their best player. This after selling one of their best players, which the fans were sad to see, but ultimately okay with, given the promise that it would be one of the only big sales that Inter would be forced into making. And so this Lukaku deal seems like they are choosing to make it, not being forced into it, as they see it as a good opportunity to get themselves out of the financial hole that they got themselves in and put their finances ahead of what happens on the pitch. Of course, you can't leave your finances unaddressed, but the plan that they had in order to recoup the funds that they need to pay back Oaktree Capital seemed like a good one, a good balance between fielding a competitive side and getting to a better place financially. As for Lukaku, I can't really see many Inter fans faulting him unless the club manages to spin the narrative that Lukaku is pushing to leave, something he hasn't done yet. But who knows? Maybe things will be different behind the scenes. Maybe he really is pushing for this move. He would be a great signing for Chelsea. He's an absolute physical force and has improved most of his game. He's a different player from the one that we saw at Manchester United. He would fit into Chelsea's system fairly well also. It's similar to what he plays at both Inter and Belgium in a sense. At Inter, he played off of Lautaro well, oftentimes being the creator of attacking moves and setting up his streaky strike partner. For Belgium, having Kevin De Bruyne driving through the middle while Lukaku floats through the wide channels and runs at defenders from the right, he looks extremely dangerous. It's hard to picture him being a flop at Chelsea with his newfound mentality and the service they can provide. How he revolutionized his nutrition and fitness regime, and how he revolutionized his play as well. But what do you guys think of this transfer? Will it happen? Is it, money well spent by Chelsea? I feel terribly bad for all of the Inter supporters, but this has to be one of the worst summers of all time. But hey, if you enjoyed this, then do subscribe. But beyond that, I'm Adrian. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.